My name is Sarah Proctor. I'll be moderating this webcast today. We have a roundtable discussion on the topic of virtual queuing, and we have a lot of guests joining in to share their experiences on the project that has just taken place in Seattle. So I'm really proud to be able to bring to you this evening a number of representatives, including Daniel Senk, who's Senior Manager at Port of Seattle. We have Mike Lorenzo, who is heading up the emerging technology at Alaska Airlines. We have Kasper Hansgaard, who is CEO and co-founder of Copenhagen Optimization. And we have Mike Twersky, who is also CEO and co-founder of Wylang. All companies have been part and have been coming together to do this virtual queuing pilot at Seattle, which has been a huge success, not only from an operations perspective, but also from the passengers. So the aim of this evening is to create an open conversation. We'll have a chat function open. You'll be able to post questions if you have any. The webcast is being recorded as well, and it will be shared with you after the webinar. We are aiming for around 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how active the audience is and how much information is wanting to be distributed among you. So without further ado, I will give the microphone to Kasper, who's going to just set the scene and share a little bit of insight on what was actually happening at Seattle with Alaska, what was the project about, so that you can have that shared common understanding of the project. So without further ado, thank you everyone for being here tonight. And Kasper, I'll give you the microphone.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for joining. So as Sarah said, just wanted to do a short opener just on the project in Seattle, how it looks on the floor today, and also just a quick demo of how passengers are signing up. So just want to go ahead and share my screen here. So what you see on screen now is really the operation at the airport. So in Seattle, the way it works is that we have the non-virtual queue passengers, so the passengers that are not using the product. Then we have the virtual queue passengers, and then we have other elements. In this case, could be clear or could be a premium passenger or similar. So because it was at first a pilot in Seattle, we set it up as kind of as least intrusive as possible. So changed slightly the layout at the checkpoint, introduced the SEA Spot Saver flow. So the SEA Spot Saver is how Port of Seattle decided to name the program. And the passengers that have signed up for the program will arrive at the checkpoint at the designated SEA Spot Saver entry point, and they will then have their QR code scanned by a staff member. That could also be done automatically by an e-gate in case an airport wanted to roll this out at a longer term. The queue then is kind of a virtual queue up until what is called the TDC position. So this is a specific setup for the US, but TDC is a travel document check position. And at that point, a TSA agent will validate your boarding card as well as your identity. And after that, it's the standard security process. Generally, from the TDC position to the actual screening lane, it's a very short distance, somewhere between 1 to 2 meters. So essentially, anybody using the Spot Saver will be able to jump about 95% of any lineups that we see at the airport. So that's how it's happening on the ground. If we then take a quick look at how the passengers are actually signing up for the program, this is the SEA Spot Saver sign up screen. So a passenger will go in here, they'll be able to select their flight date, then they'll be able to select their destination. So let's say a passenger here is going to Honolulu. Then they'll have a choice between different airlines. And one of the tricks here is because we get their flight details, we'll be able to intelligently determine when and where we want the passenger to be able to sign up, and hence really work on load balancing and peak shaving across the checkpoint. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. Now, passenger will then have their choice of checkpoint. They will have a party size that they will sign up. Let's say they selected checkpoint 3 for 3 people, and then they have a choice of appointment time. Let's say 7 a.m. And the next is then a email address to be in contact with the passenger. Last step is then the confirmation screen, where the passenger will check that the details are correct, and then they'll create the appointment. And upon creation of the appointment, they will get a QR code, which really is their entry ticket. They'll also get that on email, and they'll know that this is a confirmed appointment. They can now also go ahead and edit that appointment or cancel that appointment as need be. So that was just a really quick tour through how the system is working today at Seattle and what we're going to talk through in the next hour or so. So with that, back to you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you very much. So we are just trying to get Dan from Seattle connected with us, and he is on the phone right now, so we'll see if we can get that working. Apologies for that, but that's it, IT and technical elements. Thank you very much, Casper. I hope that gave everyone kind of a brief overview of what's been going on. What we really want to do tonight is create this very open conversation, typical Scandinavian style, is talking about what worked and what worked well. So I'm going to pitch the first question to you, Mike Lorengo from Alaska Airlines. Can you try and share your thoughts and maybe give us a bigger picture of what your perspectives are on the virtual queue solution and what it's brought to your passengers and the passenger experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I think I was excited to hear about the effort. I think Seattle reached out to us, and I think I'm getting an echo back on your phone there, Sarah. I was able to excited. I mean, survey after survey has told us that security lines are a key pain point for our guests. The pilot aligned well with Alaska's vision of offering care and ease throughout the journey. And Seattle has always been a great partner in seeking change for the better. So really excited. I think when we were approached for the pilot, we were in the midst of our One World integration. So we had to be very flexible, creative about how we can staff this. So leadership reached out to me, and we had someone from our marketing team to work with guest communications, and also someone from our policies and procedures team to kind of work with the station, our Alaska team members at the station in Seattle. I think in just this pilot, the entire team, whether it's Y-Line, Pangiam, COP, that was great to work with. You guys were very responsive to some suggestions that we had to make it easy for our guests. As an example, I think in signing up for the reservation, in our communications to our guest, we already knew what flight they were going for. So Casper did a great overview of how someone would sign up for that, where they had to choose the airline. We worked with Y-Line to say, could we send you, hey, we know what flight, we know some more information about the guest. How about we send you that information, you can pre-populate it, kind of like a one-click reservation. So that was really easy for our guests to do. I think your other question was really around how did the guests feel about the program? Our guests love the program. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I said why I'd be here today, because I'm really excited about this. There's some very personal stories. The team did great survey results, and I think what I've just gotten out of reading some of those comments were you see how this reservation capability in a pandemic, I might add, was able to bring care and ease a lot of anxiety. Whether someone's saying, I have an unvaccinated child under 12, I'm so nervous about flying with her, this service eased her mind. As a parent flying solo with young children, it's tough to get them all to be together. It makes an already stressful event even more stressful. So having this ease that stress. And then on the other side, you have a lot of elderly people traveling maybe for the first time as well. Again, having stress about traveling in a pandemic, and it was time after time again, just how this solution took one more unpredictable pain point out of our guest journey that we were really excited to participate.
Well, thank you very much, and I can only echo, and I think it's very, we didn't expect, I think we can all agree to that around the table, that it took a COVID-19 pandemic for us to come together as technology companies, airports and airlines, and try something that hadn't been tried in aviation before. So kudos to you and your team, but also Dan's team from Seattle for actually embracing that and using the pandemic to actually do something different and try something new and be a little bit bold about the way they do things and the way we do things. Casper, I'm going to give you the word, just get you, and I'd like to hear from you as well, Mike. Can you share some of your sort of thoughts and feedback that you've done this pilot Seattle? Seattle is the first airport in the world to run a full-on virtual queue project. What are the takeaways and thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience tonight?
You want to go first, Mike?
Yeah, I can
We'll
go
do it.
first. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think we're just scratching the surface, to be honest. I mean, first, I mean, if we take this notion of queuing and how we got the initial word out, I think we'll talk a little bit about communication later on. But what we did, the first step was really, hey, let's just send an email out to let our guests know about the program. And, you know, but I think if we were to take this further, where is this going? We really want to embed that in our guest travel journey. So having more embedded in the application and really how do we reduce the friction? Again, give that predictability, especially to those newer travelers. But then how do we make that the ability to just kind of show up and go through the security checkpoint really easily? If we think about, so number one is, I think, embedding it in the journey. And I think the second thing beyond security, from an airline perspective, again, we try and set everybody up to be successful as they get to the airport. We want them to do as much up front as possible. So as we kind of prep them to fly. But there's always these cases where they're going to need to see perhaps an agent for full service. And one of the things we do right now, of course, is we have a line. And, you know, what we're trying to do is eliminate lines. And so I could see an extension beyond security for an airline perspective is we might want to have something like, hey, sign up for a virtual queue to see to get full assistance. So rather than standing in line, we can have a much more casual atmosphere. Maybe they can go get a cup of coffee. If it's going to be 15 minutes, hopefully it's not going to be that long. But so beyond security and virtual queuing, I think from an airline perspective, having the full service desk where there is typically lines, we can turn that into a virtual queue really, really easily.
Great, fantastic. I'm going to just jump in before I give you the word, Mike and Casper, and I can see we are getting Dan on board as well, which is great. There's been raised a question from the audience. Is there a cost to the passenger in using the Seattle Spot Saver? Now, I know Dan's not here to answer the question quite yet, but maybe one of you answer in his place.
Actually, I'm here if you can hear me.
Yay! Fantastic.
Yeah, sorry. My apologies. Had some technical difficulties with my computer. I'm here by phone. So,
fantastic. Great to have you here. We've just had a question from the audience on whether is there a cost to the passenger using the Seattle Spot Saver program. Do you want to take that question?
I shall. Yes, there is no cost. We offer it as a free product to our customers. However, the Port of Seattle is bearing the cost to have a contract with Pangiam and Copenhagen Optimization in order to develop the product. So the answer to the question is there's no cost to the passenger. It's a free service for the passenger.
And do any of you want to maybe share some thoughts on why that's one road? I mean, there is the opportunity to make it a cost-based service. Casper, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yes, I think we looked at this from two perspectives. One is if this is a pay-for product, at least what we've seen before in airports that have tried that, I mean, it can work as a revenue stream, but it would only give you sign-up rates probably up until around 5% of passengers, probably not more than that. What we've been able to really do with the great teamwork that we've done in Seattle is actually get 20 to 30% of the passengers to sign up. And that means with the kind of intelligence underlying with our platform, combining that with the Wireline platform and the good insights from Fort Seattle and Alaska, we've actually been able to kind of load balance and peak shave across the different checkpoints at Seattle. So I think Seattle or just a quick intro to Seattle as an airport, they have 5 checkpoints that all lead to the same airside area. There are some passenger flows that are just set in their ways because they are driven by where you check in. And that's the case it is in many airports. I mean, some of the checkpoints are really kind of very popular because they're right in the way from coming down from check-in. Others are a little bit more, say, not in the way of passengers when they come down from check-in. Now with these, with the virtual queuing, we've been able to actually say notch the passengers before they even arrive at the airport to say, hey, I don't want you going to checkpoint 5. I actually want you going to checkpoint 3. Of course, that's not the message we tell the passenger. We just offer up more slots at checkpoint 3 and fewer slots at checkpoint 5. And then we will automatically have them report at checkpoint 3 at the time that we say, okay, this is a great time for them to come, because that actually load balances. And once we're able to do that, that's not only to the benefit of the ones that are using virtual queuing, it's also to the benefit of everybody else, because those 200-300 passengers an hour that would overflow at checkpoint 5, they've now gone to checkpoint 3 where they've been processed together with the other passengers down there. So I think that has been a great win from having it as a kind of a free product from Port of Seattle.
And if I could add to that just a bit, from the airport perspective, we did not want to compete with TSA PreCheck and that paid service, or Clear, which we also have at each of our checkpoints. So we wanted to offer an opportunity for those passengers that use general screening a free product, with the thinking that if we use this more on the back end for our dining and retail, get passengers through the checkpoints fairly quickly and efficiently, that we will see a higher rate of our dining and retail program, as well as the future integrate into our parking pre-booking system, as well as other revenue opportunities that can integrate with the Copenhagen Optimization product.
Great. I'm going to catch this one now that we are on the topic of whether it should be free. We have a question here from Espen in Copenhagen Airport saying, well, why offer it for free? Isn't it in direct competition with the fast track product? When should an airport weigh up those two solutions? And yeah, the airlines as well. I mean, many airlines make money of selling the fast track product. So what are your thoughts on that? Anyone?
Yeah, so I'm happy to chip in there a bit. I think, of course, there's also a difference here between the different countries and how it's set up in the different countries. I think in the US, as Dan mentioned, there's kind of pre-check and clear as the fast track options. In Europe, it's we don't have those programs. We have more of a kind of, there's definitely a frequent flyer fast track element to it, and then there's also, of course, the paid for premium lanes. I think one of the things that we're looking at to kind of alleviate some of the concern that Espen is putting forward there, which I think is a valid concern in some parts of the world, is some of what Mike Lorango touched on before, which is, okay, let's look at the entirety of the passenger journey. What if this is not only about security? What if this is about like that stress reliever, that these comments that we got in Seattle have really shown this is a stress reliever for many passengers that are not traveling very often. What if we could relieve stress in their entirety journey, right? What if they could do this from home? Get the good parking position based on the flight that they're catching, get that virtual queue slot at check-in, get a corresponding slot at security, get a slot at their favorite restaurant. I mean, how lovely would that be? So I think we have to look at this in a little bit wider terms than just security, and then we have to apply it on a more or less an airport by airport basis. And I would say that's also speaking to quite a few airports currently on this product. Every airport has some different needs. Some may be, okay, we have construction for the next year, we need to do something differently. Okay, we want to boost our commercial revenue. So I think there are quite a few elements here to catch on to.
Yeah, and I can add to that. I think agree with what Casper said 100%. And I think beyond that, what this product is, it's not just a one-trick pony that is essentially a skip the line product. Or a fast lane at the airport. Yes, people are sick of queuing. It is a pain point that we've acclimated to, and nobody, at least I haven't met too many people in my life that enjoy waiting in line. So clearly there's a pain point that we're solving there. But the way we solve it really makes all the difference. And that is what presents, I think, a holistic win-win scenario for all stakeholders involved. We're not just arbitrarily opening up VIP slots for folks to pay kind of ad hoc, although it is theoretically possible, as Casper was saying, and certainly could differ by culture and geography. But by methodically doing this in a safe and secure way, by having the predictive data to shave those peaks before they happen and fill the troughs, the operational efficiencies that the airport is able to recoup from an operational perspective is tremendous. And the value that we can also bring to customers to couple that carries on top. The survey results that they're sharing, the ability for them to come to the airport completely stress and anxiety free. Oftentimes the exact opposite of how sometimes they've come into the past. It really makes all the difference, and that has led to, as we heard, increased revenue opportunities in other areas of the passenger journey as well. So not doing this in a holistic way, and then certainly the add-ons that Casper was touching upon, then it really is, kind of this one-trick pony, but this product is not that.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take the word. I'd like for us to get around at least two main topics, and that's concept of operations and communicating with the passengers. Two very, very important elements of the successful pilot at Seattle with Alaska. Now, we've had a lot of questions come in. Thank you very much. I'm trying to keep track of them. There are a lot of them. I'm going to raise one of them, which is being asked. So, what percentage of passengers are using the Seattle Spot Saver program? And has the usage data already been made possible to optimize the use of security resources at the security check lanes? Dan, do you want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah, great question. So our goal during the pilot program was to try and shave off about 20% of the passengers going through the checkpoint during that 8-hour period, really to spread out our peak hour demand, if you will. And I believe we achieved that. I think we were higher than 20% during the peak hours. We were somewhere around 25, 26%. So forgive me, I forgot the second part of that question.
Have you been able to optimize the use of security resources at check-in? I know that's a TSA. Maybe we can't go into how they've been able to use this project, but maybe you have had some conversations with them as well.
Yeah, so right from the start, we brought TSA in with the hopes that they could help to facilitate the pilot period by being able to staff certain ticket document checking podiums or actually staff up on lanes during the peak hour period. What we found and what we learned is it's very difficult to try and anticipate how many lanes will be open or how many TDC or ticket document checker podiums will be open. So we ran the pilot involving TSA, but not really considering their staffing levels day to day. We hope in the future that we will be able to have more buy-in and more predictability with the TSA staffing levels. But during the pilot period, that was a variable that was a little too overwhelming to try and take on.
And what do you think about that, Mike, from an airline perspective? Is that something that you would like to see happen?
Well, I think it's personally, I think, right, I think the context of why I was so excited to have this, I think we had a couple of situations at SEA where we had lines going out because of social distancing out into the garage. And so I think from really our guest perspective, that's who our key stakeholder is working with the Port of Seattle and TSA to make that experience as best as possible. I truly believe, I said it before, just the comments that come through from our guest perspective are really heartening to see a difference that we're making in travelers' journeys. I think I was able to get into the Copenhagen Optimization portal, and just some of the capability that I think to show where those peaks and valleys are, certainly demonstrates how that conversation might be able to happen with the TSA when they're able to engage further. Just kind of, we can see the demand coming in, and maybe I see it as a tool that can help to optimize staffing. But again, this is something I am not by any means an expert on. I'm just watching from the sidelines in this case. So that's my personal opinion.
Good. Again, I'm going to blend in some of the questions that have come in just to wrap up the concept of operations at the airport. What have some of the, should I say, challenges or learnings been when you're actually operating the virtual queue setup physically at the airport? We have a question here from someone saying, what happens if passengers arrive early? Or what happens if I'm stuck on the highway and I don't make my appointment? Can you share some thoughts on how does that actually work today, and what can the passenger expect from this program? And have you made adjustments throughout the pilot?
Yeah,
Right, maybe.
I can take that one, and then Casper, feel free to chime in as well. So we have different toggles that we can use in the system where we look at the data and we optimize, and the cadence for how frequent we open up slots, the duration of each slot, the number of passengers per slot, all completely customizable. So as we see to the data coming in, and this really is differentiated, could be differentiated at a checkpoint level, by even a flight level, and we can do this, on an airport by airport basis too. We are giving folks enough time based on the data that we're seeing. So in the case of Seattle, we're doing 15-minute increments, anywhere between 50 to 70 passengers within that duration. We have grace period toggles on the front end and the back end of that 15-minute period and window. So if they do come slightly early or slightly late, they are allowed in. The data that we're seeing shows that, by and large, people are coming within the standard deviation of when their reservation slot is, which is great. But of course, there are exception cases, and if you come, incredibly early, we train the staff and on where they can wait in safe places, or if there's nobody in the lane at that given moment, they could be let through to make sure that there's proper throughput. And if they're running late and they're stuck on the highway, they have the ability to easily go in, access their email, go to the tracking link, and reschedule to a time that could be better suited for them as well.
Yeah, and if I can just add, I think during this, and also kudos to the Port of Seattle team, they saw this very much as a pilot. So we really got to try out different things. We got to play with the grace periods. We got to play a lot with the right number of slots to open up to passengers. And we were tracking that through all the data that we were picking up. So we had a long list of different kind of levers or handles that we could pull to really make sure that we were tracking everything and that we were learning, and most of it worked well. And there were also a couple of things where we say, okay, we're probably going to backtrack a little bit on this because that was not the direction we wanted to head in. So overall, that really gave us the opportunity to learn a lot, and I think it's been a good learning experience. And I think we have a lot of good ideas that we can continue to learn from. But just that ability to actually treat a pilot like a pilot and try out different things were really positive.
What are your thoughts on that, Mike, Dan? Has this been a playing field, and has your team enjoyed that bit of it? Had some good learnings from it?
I don't know, Mike, you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Dan. I think you can cover this one.
Yeah.
Closest.
What we discovered, because this has not been a product that's been offered in airports, is there are many different variables, and it was a pleasure to treat this like a pilot, to be able to learn and grow as we moved along, and there are so many things that we did learn, like what Mike touched on earlier is hitting or making contact with the passenger early in the travel journey really increases the participation rate and it provides that predictability that reduces anxiety. So also having it available many different locations throughout the airport, and putting it right in front of the face of the customer so that they have the option to join in. A lot of lessons learned. So it was a pleasure, honestly, to be able to work with Copenhagen Optimization through the pilot period and really learn and grow. And we're going to continue to learn and grow as we move into the permanent product.
Great, and on that, I mean, I'd love for us to talk about the communication to passengers. I think that's a really key element. But let's catch on what you're saying on learn and grow and what's next. We have some questions coming in saying, can we see this work with biometric migration systems? And what about the commercial aspect? Are there sort of commercial benefits for the airports using this virtual queue setup? I'm just seeing the question now. Yeah, is the information used, and what are the passengers saying? Are they enjoying the product, and is it giving any benefits for their experience at the airport? Don't know if anyone wants to chip in. You can raise your hand.
Well, I can't talk much about the biometrics. I'm not tech savvy that way, so maybe Casper or Mike. But the benefits to the airport itself is this is such a flexible product that we're really going to use it to integrate into different products, different software platforms to help with that travel journey. The travel journey is really our focus, and how we enhance that for every single passenger. My goal, our goal, the Port of Seattle's goal would be to get 100% participation from our passengers, so that we can create a very predictable and efficient process through that travel journey. I would love to incorporate biometric. I think that would be certainly something that would make it even more efficient. But I am not tech savvy enough to really talk about how to do that.
Maybe Casper, Mike, can you see this being the future of an end-to-end journey platform that we combine when the passenger is arriving at the airport, and even more data?
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, traveling with your face is my dream, and it's kind of coming in airports around the world. So again, it's all about that personalized airport journey. I think that's overall the vision of where we're going with this, and we can see from kind of us coming out of the airport operation and planning the airport operation, we have a lot of golden nuggets in that airport operational planning and execution that we can share with the passengers. Where is the best place to park? Where can they check in? Where should they ideally be going? What is their gate? Can they do until such time that they have to board the aircraft? And yes, biometrics, but I think Dan also mentioned parking. I think another use case that we've been discussing in Seattle, as Seattle also has some very beautiful nature and some very beautiful sea around them, there is also a lot of cruise companies. And these cruise companies are also very interested in that. And again, the cruise guests would absolutely, at least that's what we're hearing talking to the cruise companies, they would love this to be extended onto kind of, okay, now I'm done with my cruise. Now I have to go through the hassle of getting back home. Again, what if we could make that less of a hassle, less of a stress kind of a builder, but more of a stress reliever, and say, okay, but here's your journey through the airport. 10 a.m. you come here, 10:15 you check in there, 10:30 you go there, 11:15 I booked the table for you there, or I've secured that your coffee is ready, or like I think there are so many use cases here, and everything that we've built so far to date is really with very open APIs. We're not here to kind of sell data or anything. We're here to provide a platform on which to build. So really looking forward to trying out and hopefully succeeding with more than just security. So
yeah,
good point. I'm saying, Mike, I'd love to hear your comment on this, because I mean, I'm personally very excited to be working with you guys from Wireline, because you come outside of the aviation industry. And for us that have been in the industry for a long time, we're always talking about how we should get inspiration from looking outside our industry. So you have experience using Wireline in other segment. Can you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying before, the pain point of queuing is pervasive in so many facets of our lives. So it is a pain point at times in airports, but it's also very much a pain point in other areas of our daily lives as well. So yes, I mean, we work with banks and hospitals and government agencies, DMVs, things like these. But what I was going to comment on also was it's not just limited to the passenger journey within the airport space. It can also be used for more administrative functions as well, where I think this also gets super interesting. So vendor scheduling, cargo drop off and pickup scheduling, employee badging, fingerprinting, testing, things like that. There are so many different ways around creating operational efficiencies, whether it's in the airport or comparable use cases, that solutions like this could be incredibly impactful, both for the customer and from a cost savings perspective as well as it relates to the administrative stuff. And to Casper's point, yeah, I mean, you see this easily as an end-to-end solution for folks, hopping on a plane and then getting off and hopping on a cruise ship. And this is not just for boarding onto a cruise ship. I mean, then you think about the queuing bottlenecks that happens once you're on the cruise, right? You can't get your favorite restaurant. You can't get your cabana chair by the pool. You can't get into your favorite show. So having the ability to schedule all of that in a methodical way, show availability and show comparable alternatives based on last minute availability if they can't do exactly what they want to do, that is all part and parcel of planning out your daily life from a time management and queuing bottleneck perspective that is just game changing in every which way, shape, or form.
Great. Well, thank you very much. If this is a success, we need to get guests or passengers or users to use the product, and that leads me to the whole communication, which I know is a key component to the successful pilot at Seattle. And Mike, I'd love to hear from Alaska Airlines. And I know from my team who have been actively working with you and Seattle that you included this in your direct communication to the passengers. So when they were asked to check in online, they were also asked to sign up, or given the opportunity at least. Can you share some insights on what worked well and what your thoughts were behind sort of reaching out directly in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think communication and from the airline is critical because we have the relationship. We know who our guests are when they're going to be there. Just as an example, right, we did, because this was a trial, we kind of hooked together things, probably not the best way, but it was good enough. And so I was able to leverage some APIs from Copenhagen Optimization to get, hey, what flights are available for virtual queuing. We'd then send that over to our contact center. They would generate a special email, a very manual process for them, and it would get sent out 24 hours in advance when the guest, right, is thinking about traveling. Well, when you build things like this, sometimes they don't work, and we actually stopped sending emails out for 2 days. And what we saw was, instead of selling out basically slots 24 hours in advance, our take rate was now only like 10%. And which was good. That means people knew about it without the airline. But I think if an airport's out there and they want to implement this, they need to work with some key airline partners to be able to drive that, to make the awareness in. Because you can put QR codes and signs in the airport. I think Dan said even putting it in people's faces. There's so many signs there in the airport that you kind of get sign overload. So having that communication. And we found a special communication worked mainly for our process because it was easy to put in. And when a guest receives an email 24 hours in advance, and it says, it says something specific about save your spot for security, they pay attention. Because that wasn't a sustainable process after the trial, we kind of reverted back to our 72-hour pre-trip email, which everyone's used to seeing, and it just says, hey, you're flying out of Seattle, and then kind of below the fold is there this thing that says, hey, sign up for Spot Saver, and we were able to then put that one-click reservation that goes to Y-Line that pre-populates all that because we know what you're flying through. But we didn't. I think we saw the take rate was probably about 40%. I'm just making that number up. I know it wasn't. We weren't selling out slots anymore, 24 hours in advance. So getting an airline to be along with you in your trial is critical to get the word out. And then I would say what I like about the Yline solution, it wasn't another app. So the adoption rate was pretty easy. I mean, the integration is, hey, I'm sending an email, and we don't have to ask our guest to download another app, because we just see that you don't get the adoption nearly when someone has to take a separate step. I think what's cool and where we want to take this in the future with the teams is having those APIs available for us to call. We certainly want to link out. I think that's probably the next step. We can embed that in our check-in flow in our app, but then to really build this experience into all of our at-home journeys before they get to the airport, having that critical API available is something that we want to see going forward.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what Mike mentions here is the airline partnership is extremely valuable. But we also did a communication campaign where we went out to the media and involved the media with this product during the pilot, and created a brand for our SEA Spot Saver, and having that brand visible not only in the email communication, but when the passenger arrives to the airport, they can see the SEA Spot Saver brand in the dedicated lane at the checkpoint. So they associate the branding through that travel journey. We also created a web page which assisted with the connection to Yline as well. Even though it was a direct connection through the airline communication, they could also go to our webpage and review frequently asked questions, as well as look at the process, and then also sign up with SEA Spot Saver through the webpage.
Yeah, and if I can just
Please.
if I can just quickly add onto that, I think again it was a pilot. We tried out a lot of different things. I think what we're looking to do now is also we can see that actually kind of organically the numbers are growing. We've not changed anything on the communication strategy, but we do see that steadily that kind of increase in just more people know about it. We have a lot of comments saying travelers, oh, I already told my friends and family, but I'm not going to tell everybody else because then it's going to be sold out, right? So we have a lot of positive kind of referrals from passengers, and the word is just getting out there now in Seattle. But I think Michael Rango, you kind of throughout a couple of times in the pilot also has said that Alaska Airlines got some emails from from some of your guests asking, hey, could I use this in all Alaska airports, right? So I think it's we're seeing, okay, can we actually pull this off? And this in like 2 or 3 or 4 years is a commodity like it has been in Disney for a long time, and it becomes the same as self-service in airports. That of course you can do self-service. Of course you can virtual queue for check-in or security. Of course you can be in control of your own journey through the airport. I mean that is one of at least my own kind of vision points and really where we want to get to.
Fantastic. Well, we have a few minutes left, and I'm seeing a few more questions come in, and they are actually very much orientated towards the concept of operations again. What does virtual queuing bring to the efficiency and the optimizing the airport and the throughput? I'm going to read one of the questions, which is, unless one of the checkpoints was completely empty before, as no line, during the peak time, are you still processing the same number of passengers with the same TSA staff? So, what's the case for airports? Will they be load balancing across checkpoints, or what's the benefit? What are we gaining? Aren't we just processing the same number of passengers? Casper, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to how passengers arrive, because at the end of the day, it's like well, maybe we've had a few more passengers book an Alaska ticket and fly because of this product. I don't think so. I don't think we've gotten more travelers or passengers into the airport. What we have done is influence how passengers arrive. So because just the nature of airports, I mean, you cannot have full like the exact amount of ride pressure on all your lanes at all times as if it was a factory with kind of no wait times. What we've been able to do is to say, okay, we want to notch you just to come a little bit earlier, where there's not as much pressure, or I want to notch you to come at this checkpoint instead of that checkpoint, not a completely empty checkpoint, but a checkpoint that's flowing better than an overflow at checkpoint 5. It's also a little bit about like the perception. Perception is reality, right? And I remember when I worked at Copenhagen Airport, we asked the passengers, so how long did you wait for security? And we tried that with showing the passenger the wait time at security and without showing the passenger the wait time at security. And consistently, it was almost double up when we did not show the wait time. So the passengers that are waiting feel they're waiting longer, right? It's much better to walk in line than to stand in line. And another thing, and this is unfortunately I think true in many airports, is as long as you're within kind of your kind of queue maze, it's okay, it's controlled. The moment it starts overflowing is when that stress starts to build, because where does this queue even start? Where does it end? What if it bends around a corner? And that is sometimes the situation in Seattle, where some of the checkpoints, just the nature of their size and the queue space available is such that, for instance, at checkpoint 5, it overflows pretty quickly. And that will then have the passengers kind of turn wide and say, ooh, is this a really long line? Whereas if they just walk those 50 meters longer down to checkpoint 3, that is a better flow. So overall, it's really about nudging the passengers to do something slightly differently, and that's the trick to solve it. Dan, I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah. Let me just add to that real quickly. So I think you said it, Casper, but the efficiency comes with the ability to prioritize passengers based on departure time. So right now, what we see are passengers that may have a departure time 2 hours from now in front of passengers that may have a departure time of 45 minutes from now. So with our goal of 100% participation, ultimately we'll gain just super efficiencies by being able to prioritize those passengers and have them arrive at the airport at the given time or so many minutes before the departure time. So that's the efficiency.
And Mike, you were mentioning you had some personal anecdotes. And I know we've done an extensive passenger survey as part of this pilot project, and we've had a lot of responses. Do you have any kind of personal takeaways that you say, or personal stories from passengers saying that they actually don't mind being nudged to showing up maybe a little bit earlier than they otherwise would have? Do they like that experience?
I will say, I think when we were sending that targeted email out 24 hours in advance, we'd sell out the popular spots. And so we've got some negative comments like, because people didn't understand that they sold out. It's like, why are you giving me 4:30 in the morning? My flight's at X, right? And an hour or so later. So there is that. But I will say those, right? I think that how we communicate that the slots are selling, you got to act fast because the inventory is going fast. But again, the reason why I am here today is just those personal stories that we had one person had artificial hips that are titanium, and it's like, I'm a nervous wreck. This service was comforting to me, and so those are the things. It's like, wow, this really made a difference in someone's life. And it's as simple as saving a spot in line. So that's why, again, I just think this was, love to see this go to more airports. I think from an airline perspective, though, how do I make it? How do you guys make it? The airport industry and the vendors make it easy so that I don't have to say, well, I need to call who's doing, LA or who's doing DCA. I don't want to have to figure out who to integrate with. I'd much rather have, like we've kind of done with TSA wait times. I think the Airport Council is starting to standardize that. I think as this becomes more of a commodity, I think that's going to be critical so we don't put a burden on airport or airlines interacting.
Great, well, thank you very much. I'm looking at the clock and saying that we are coming towards a closure, and I'd like to take this opportunity just to give all the panelists a one final word or final takeaway on where do they see virtual queuing going, what's next, and will we continue to see this expand into other airports and in particularly with other airlines. So Mike, do you want to grab the word and maybe give your final comments as we wrap up this roundtable session for the evening?
Mike T, sorry, me.
Mike T, Mike Tversky, you're top on my screen, yes.
No problem. Sure, yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I think, you know, we covered so many elements of how this can be expanded in a compelling way, and I think it's all true. I think you're going to start seeing this in other aspects of the passenger journey, full end-to-end. You're going to start seeing this prospectively on some of those administrative functions as well, all of which feeds the bottom line to the airport, right? But more broadly, around the periphery of what we see as the travel and hospitality sector, I think you're also going to start seeing more widespread applicability and use cases, whether it's at, you know, the cruise lines like we were talking about before, land border crossings, seaports, and logistics. So I think hotels and casinos, I think you're going to start seeing that as well.
Great. We'll take the next mic in line then. Mike Lorengo.
All right.
Please.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah. I think, right. Where do I see this going? I think I already mentioned, yeah, expansion to airports, other airports. I think for things like full service line at our ticket counters when we have those guests that may need a little extra care. And then I think what would be really interesting is you get more data. Certainly, as we know, as guests come in, right, people have to think, when should I make my reservation? And Yline provides the ability to modify that reservation. But I think if we could use the data, understand our flow in the lobbies, and be able to predict or suggest, right, a time for them. Because even I think as you saw Casper go through the demo, there's multiple options, but which is the right option for me, especially if I'm checking a bag? Is that going to add something to my timeline? So I think I think this is just day one for this. We've certainly been through the trial. We learned a lot, and I think I've heard everyone on here say that's what's been really nice about this is we're able to iterate on this and try new things. So looking forward to what lays ahead.
Fantastic, thank you. And Dan, I'd love to hear any final comments or remarks that you want to share with the group.
Yeah, I really just echoing what Mike and Mike said. The future of airport travel is with a product like this for sure. We are starting to see it catch on at other airports already. Boston has run a pilot. Dallas Fort Worth has started a fast pass program, and Los Angeles LAX is now starting a pilot program, as we know. So I think the future of travel and the future of the travel journey in airports is definitely moving in this direction. And just a little plug for the pool. We're proud to be the first in the industry to pilot something like this.
You should
All right,
be.
well,
Very proud. I think it's a great move. Casper, last final remarks before we close the session.
yeah. So definitely, as Dan said, we see this spreading. We're also the solution behind what they're doing in LAX, and hopefully we'll have a few more airports before Christmas. I think being a numbers guy at heart, tracking all this data has been amazing. I mean, we had some really cool statistics. As Dan said, we were able to shave off the peaks by 26%. Average over the peak periods. We're able to have 63% of the passengers actually say that they were spending the time that they now saved not waiting in line on spending more money in the commercial area and having a good time, and satisfaction rates of I think 98% or so. But I think really what still was the most value adding for me was when I could finally actually go to Seattle and try the product out, and was standing for a morning together with the brilliant team on the ground and scanning in passengers, because that's where that's where you can feel the most, and that's where you get those comments in real life, like a mom coming with 5 kids, and she was like, come on kids, and she was like, here, and I scanned the QR code, and she was like, is that easy? Yes, it's that easy. And then she was on, right? And people that are just like, the joy that they felt there, and kind of say, oh, this is just a great idea, and you're like, yeah, well, it's actually my idea, so, or the team's idea at least, but it was great to get that from the passionate. So being out there and seeing how happy it makes people was really heartwarming.
Good. Well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone who has been with us, Mike, Casper, Dan, and everyone for listening in. We've had a great audience with a lot of questions. I see that we haven't been able to touch on all of them, where I together with my team, will make sure that we reach out, or at least include those in the mail out when the webinar recording goes out to everyone. So we will get those answers handled and dealt with. So without anything else, I just want to say thank you, everyone, and good evening and good morning, and we'll see you soon, somewhere virtually in the queue. Good. Thank you very much. Thank you.